Many have tried to create a slow 20-ton mech over the centuries in Battletech, and these are often viewed as foolish aberrations, or mechs engineered with hubris as their primary goal. Well, this is genuinely almost always the case. In universe, one of these mechs has received, at least at some point in its existence, some support beyond the jeers from emotionally upset pilots at their casket being so foul. That is Kalon Weapons Industries' oddball, the Hornet. A light mech weighing in at 2 tons, the Hornet was built for strange purposes, and upon its original debut to the Star League Defense Forces, was considered a stunning failure. So much so that it was only manufactured from 2760 to 2762. The Star League believed it could create, through Kalon, a Battlemech which was specialized for urban reconnaissance. This proved to be a disastrous venture for the Star League, which was why the project was abruptly stopped after only a short level of production. Being so specialized, it also, frankly, was underwhelming at the role it seemed to embody in the context of the late generation of warfare the Star League was now participating in. When the Succession Wars emerged, however, the Great Houses sought any battlemech, tank, or aerospace fighter that they could find. In 2990, during the Third Succession War, Kalon Industries rediscovered the blueprints for the Hornet, and managed to repeat the same horrible process which the Star League started centuries earlier. New Hornets were produced on the moon of Talon, and Kalon's facilities in the Federated Suns, and immediately disappointed once again upon their procurement. In this case, its main victims were mercenary units, planetary militias, independent states in the Periphery, and a few trickled their way into the armed forces of the Federated Suns. Simply put, no one could seem to figure out how to get optimal returns on this mech in combat, especially for its original role. As armored as a Locust, but as fast as a moderately paced Valkyrie, one can only imagine how it struggled as a recon asset, especially when put up against Stingers or Wasps, which were only remotely less armored, but faster and arguably better gunned for their size, especially in the close quarters environments of urban combat. It would only be with its adoption by the Wolf's Dragoons that the Hornet would be viewed in a more positive light. This, however, to be clear, is not reflective of the unit itself. Many of the Wolf's Dragoons mechs are frankly underwhelming, despite their sterling reputation. The Hoplite, Imp, Flea, Shogun, and an assortment of other challenging mechs were used to great effect in-universe by the Dragoons, but this doesn't necessarily measure to their quality outside of their overly capable hands. This did, however, encourage more sales for Kalon Industries, and a much more positive spin on the Hornet's otherwise questionable capabilities as a battlemech. While it would never be a top-quality performer as a result, it would still see usage all the way into the Ill-Clan era, throughout a multitude of parties and states, though it would never seemingly leave the Wolf's Dragoons arsenal, and it would even find its way into the Kellhound's mech base. The primary variant of the HNT series during the Succession Wars was the HNT-151, and it is the basis for all other designs that would follow afterwards. The original design, the HNT-171, became extinct during the Star League, though it would come back upon the discovery of the Helm memory core. It benefits, and suffers, from a few additional features in the advanced rules. The Hornet series may lack some of the flash of its counterparts in a few ways, but it's not lacking in terms of the most powerful structural quirk in the game. That is, it has the terrifying narrow or low-profile quirk, making it one harder to hit at range. The benefits of this are obvious, and is desperately needed for a 20-ton mech that frankly lacks in regards to its maneuvering. The other trait, which is far more common and potentially troublesome, is its no-arms quirk. This is for obvious reasons, given that the Hornet's appearance demonstrates that it functionally has no arms. This can be a problem if the mech is knocked over, and needs to get itself up. Technologically, it's a Succession Wars level design, which means standard gyro, standard cockpit, and a normal internal structure. Sadly, where the Hornet's first folly is, and likely its primary folly is in its mobility. For a recon asset, it comes with only the 3-ton Hermes 100 standard power plant. This means that the Hornet can only move at 86 km per hour, or 8 movement points in the tabletop game. To enhance this, it does invest in 5 Pitman LFT-50 jump jets, letting it leap up to 150 meters or 5 movement points. The reason this is a disaster is simply because it is slower than any other light mech fulfilling the same role. And for a mech so small, being only 20 tons, speed is its greatest asset. It is also designed for urban areas, where despite what Battletech's lore may tell you to the contrary, movement and maneuvering are life in the desperate battles in the streets of cities. Especially for a scout. It will be caught by every other light mech from its production era, or the Succession Wars, with only a few examples to the contrary, such as the Panther, Urban Mech, or the Valkyrie. Very clearly, it can only utilize 10 standard heatsinks due to its extremely limited tonnage for these systems. The Hornet is largely a cool running mech, and for its weaponry, it's easy to understand why. Its primary armament is a Martel medium laser, something which is very standard for light mechs in general. To back this up, it has a Martel small laser, for if the fighting gets too close. For a mech expecting to fight in an urban environment, it bewilderingly has an LRM-5, which adds ammunition to the mech and has limited use in the kinds of settings it is expected to be in. While more useful in the open or acting as support, this weapon is unreliable at delivering consistently, when it only has a single set of 1 in the machine. This weapons package is inferior to its faster counterparts in the Wasp and Stinger, for the very environment that it was built to operate in. For the technology level it uses, the 151 has only standard plating to protect it, of which it has 4 tons, putting it on par with the Locust, its much more famous 20-ton stablemate. In total, this is 64 points of exterior armor. This is more than acceptable, with the caveat that it is far from impressive to anything heavier than itself, even by 5 to 10 tons. The Hornet cannot persist in combat for long, and should aim to avoid it, or escape it. The only problem is, it's not particularly fast for its weight. Its narrow profile does help with this, however, lending it some additional survivability outside of melee engagements, something which it may in fact face more often than it cares to. The Hornet, as compared to its 20-ton peers, underdelivers and underperforms. Even the often derided Thorn consistently delivers better and moves faster. In an urban scenario, it is easily outdone by the mechs it was meant to compete with for the city recon role, and thus, this is why the Star League would cancel procurement of this mech after only 2 years. Once engaging in broader military operations during the Succession Wars, it would show little signs of life in other battlefield tasks, and is more than likely a liability than a help to its pilots and units. The Hornet would not be so short-lived to have only survived the Succession Wars, though. During the Succession Wars, the HNT-152 would be a field modification to replace out the LRM-5 for a much more in-line with design SRM-4, which would make it much more capable despite still having severe problems. Though outside of this, the 171, the original design, has an anti-missile system, and no small laser as a result, and has the misfortune of investing even more tonnage into LRM-5 ammunition. It has 2 less jump capability as a result. Most of its limited variants are very small modifications from the whole of the design. It's a poor performer across every era, though it seems to excel in the hands of the Wolf's Dragoons. For low battle value, one may find some purchase in the Hornet, but as a proper scout or fighting vehicle, it is simply poor at almost every role. It struggles to compete with its immediate adversarial designs, and by and large is a poor substitute for simply having a real recon asset. The Star League got a lot wrong over the years. It didn't when it discontinued the Hornet. Thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. I do updates very frequently, and you'll be happy with the content, I think. Also, a huge thank you to all the YouTube members for this channel. When you hit the join button and become a member, you take an extra step in supporting the content on this channel, and I can't thank you enough. Because this content is only made possible because of viewers like you. And with that, I'm going to see everyone in the comment section below.